Welcome to Hindsight. This is the podcast where I talk about my memories and experiences with games, and more recently, we're talking about stuff about games. I'm Glenn, and this is episode 22. We're going to talk about strategy games today. Strategy games are something that I don't normally go out of my way to enjoy. One of the most recent ones that I played was Fire Emblem Three Houses, and a lot of the day to day life minigame stuff really took away from the parts of the strategy element that I don't really love. And that was kind of nice because the actual Fire Emblem part of it is something that kind of drags on me. There's a there's a part of those kinds of games that just doesn't really mesh with me very well. And I don't really know why that is exactly. I guess it's not being able to overcome things all the time, or uh, digging yourself a hole that can be really hard or impossible to dig yourself back out of. I don't really love that part of those games. Most of the time, if I'm uh, doing something like that in a game, if it's like an action game or an RPG, it's in a battle or something that's at max, it's gonna take 2 to 3 minutes for the most part. That besides the point. Uh, I did have one experience where I was fighting the final boss of Final Fantasy VII for like 45 minutes before I finally had to call it quits and reload and try something else. But that's entirely different. That's a different situation entirely. Um, but strategy games, you can get into these situations and it can take 45 minutes, hour and a half, 2 hours. Uh, at least in terms of like real time strategy, your Age of Empires, Stronghold, Starfield, not Starfield, StarCraft, the all the games like that, you can be in a game for hours before having to start over, digging yourself that hole, and it's not something that I enjoy. I I don't want to invest that much time in a game just to lose and kind of not having a good time with it. So, in a nutshell, I guess that's part of the majority, I guess, of what I don't appreciate in strategy games. They feel a little disrespectful of my time and energy and commitment. Three Houses kind of stacked onto that feeling, because I went through and I played through the Blue Lions route of that game, and I put in 70, 80 hours into that game. And at the end of it, I got an ending. The ending itself was fine. Like, in isolation, it's a pretty decent ending to the game. It was fine. But I was living with my roommate at the time, and he had been going through the Golden Deer scenarios. And at the time I was finishing the game, he was just starting Act 4, which, like, the equivalent of an Act 4, some kind, like, an entire separate part of the game that Blue Lions just didn't even have. There was all this additional story that was going on in the game that Blue Lions didn't even touch on. And I guess for a lot of people, I can see the value. There's a lot more game there that was there to be explored. There was a lot more character involvement. There was more to be seen with Edelgard and the bow guy in Golden Deer. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry. Um, so there was a lot more there. And of course, they added even more. There was a whole nother school in the DLC. But I mean, for me, like 70 hours was already asking a lot for me to put into a Fire Emblem game. And not to say I didn't enjoy it, but I really didn't want to have to go back and do all the grinding and all the relationship building and the mini games and the cooking and the fishing and do all of that all over again and mess with stats and worry about level ups and getting characters into their classes and like all of that just sounded like so much more of a chore. And I just wasn't interested. I wasn't really interested in that at all. Um, so the game really lost me, and I got really burned by it because if I had known ahead of time that the endings of the games were going to be so different, like I was only ever going to go play through that game once, and if it had told me ahead of time that I was going to get half of the story in Blue Lions that I would have from Golden Deer, I would have easily, very obviously chosen Golden Deer because I wanted the most bang for my buck. Uh, I guess pun intended, since we're talking about Golden Deer. But that, I guess that's all I'm gonna rant about on Three Houses. Kind of, it's kind of good timing, I guess, since the Three Houses Muso Warriors game is coming out. Like, actually, I think it might have just come out on like Friday. If not, it's coming out in the next few days. I don't quite remember when that's coming out. I know there's a demo available for it, and I'm a lot more interested in the Warriors game than I was in the other playthroughs of Three Houses, but I still probably won't play it. I'm interested in it. I think it'll probably be pretty good, but yeah, I don't know. It just left a bad taste in my mouth to play that long and then realize that like that one playthrough that I had the time and energy to put into a Fire Emblem game, I ended up getting the bad ending, essentially. Yeah, I don't know. But I guess for other games, other kinds of strategy games and stuff, I've played some of uh I've played some like Age of Empires, some Stronghold, and I actually kind of enjoy the campaigns in those games. The main story content. I feel like those are pretty well crafted to keep things flowing, keep it moving, and kind of restrict you from getting stuck in those situations that I described, where you're, playing for 2, 3 hours just to fail and have to start over. For the most part, I feel like a lot of those tend to get you to that fail state within like 30, 40 minutes at the most. Uh, and you could always start over if you really wanted to. In multiplayer, I think the games can really suffer. If I mean, if you have a bad starting location, or if you just don't, if you get off on the wrong foot, or someone attacks you right away, uh, it can just leave you sitting there completely restricted on resources with really nothing to do for the hour and a half that the game is going to go on. And if you're lucky, you'll get taken out completely and be able to go, get a drink or some snacks and just watch the rest of the game play out, or catch a couple episodes of TV and wait for the next game to start. I just I don't know. I like my games to be a little more involved. Uh, Not to say that strategy games aren't involved. They're extremely involved. There's a lot of mind game going on, moment to moment gameplay that is really valuable, and I do see the value in it. I'm not gonna say that I don't, but I guess it's just not for me. Um, like I enjoy chess and checkers and board games and all of that. That uh, like Risk is a game that I actually enjoy to sit down and play, even though it kind of has the same thing. But in a video game, I don't know. I guess it's just a little different for me in my head. That when I sit down to play a video game, I guess I don't expect that failure state to be quite so present. When I sit down to play something like a shooter, like an online shooter, I know that if my team is gonna lose, I'm gonna get to that point within 5 to 10 minutes for the most part. Especially, I play a lot of like Nintendo shooters and fighters and stuff like that. So your Super Smash Brothers and your Splatoon, uh, you're gonna know whether you won or lost within 5 to 10 minutes, and that's kind of ideal for me. I don't want. I do not like sitting in a losing situation for a long time, and I just feel like strategy games tend to get me feeling that way. And I guess that's just because I'm bad at them. That might be the real issue here, is just that I'm really, really bad at strategy games and doing long form strategy. Um, so I guess you could boil it down to that. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I'm really good at them and they just bore me, because I'm not. I'm not that good at them. Uh, So that certainly plays into it. I mean, I'm always going to have more fun playing games that I'm good at and am seeing success in. Um, yeah. So I guess that's just a short rant. There's uh, there's a few things in strategy games, I guess, that I really enjoy that I don't see in other games. Uh, I mean, the long form combat is a part of that. I really enjoy seeing a whole field and knowing that's the entire battle, uh, seeing the enemies on the map, something like Advance Wars, or like Disgaea, something like that, where you see every enemy on the map. You can look at all of their stats, all of their moves, know everything that they can do, and track that for the whole encounter. There's something about that that's really nice. The kind of lack of surprise that you can be hit with in a strategy game is really refreshing, actually. Uh, and I guess that stacks onto my feeling of defeat when I get dug a hole, because I already know my abilities and my skills and everything that I can do is never going to be enough to overcome the situation I'd put myself in. Um, so that's nice. I mean, it's like if you're playing chess and you lose your queen, and then you lose a couple more of your specialty pieces, your rooks and your knights. Um, you already know you're in a losing battle, and strategy games are definitely the same feeling. Where it gets me, so I guess some of these games I don't feel quite as strongly about, but there are games like Fire Emblem that really dig into me. Um, and the newer games have some difficulty levels that make this a much lesser problem, and I genuinely have a lot more fun playing through those. But the permanent loss of your units when they die is a huge issue for me because I don't have the patience to. Uh, and of course, nowadays you can emulate them and use save states and all of that. But even then, if you're digging yourself a hole that's several turns deep, uh, you're still going to be losing a lot of time by having to reset the battle, or you know rewind several turns. But the newer games, they have easy modes. They make it so if if a unit runs out of HP, they'll retreat from battle, and you'll still have them at the next location rather than losing them outright. Uh, because that sucks. I understand the value of it. I see why it's important, why it's a mainstay of the series, and I even understand why players like it. I like the actual long term effects, the feeling uh of weight to losing a unit, but nobody's gonna choose to lose the unit and move on. So I think that's kind of a lost cause. I mean, that's something where like that's one of those house rules that you do when you do like a Pokemon Nuzlocke. Uh, if you let a unit die, you get rid of it or stop using it for the rest of the game. That's something that it's not something that you should have as like a basic part of the game. I feel like that's something you put on yourself for future playthroughs, not to just experience the game the first time. Um, I don't personally feel the value of resetting a battle for like 80 times to get through it with all of my characters. So getting to play through the more recent Fire Emblems with that easy mode on makes it a manageable experience for me. And man, some of those battles are just so ridiculous that I don't know how they expect you to get through without losing people. I mean, even seeing just the walkthroughs and the way you have to set up units ahead of time and the places you have to move them is so tight in order to guide the enemy AI to not just one shot all your characters. It's outrageous. I don't I don't quite understand how people have so much fun playing these games. Uh, there's a mastery to it. I mean, if you were going to go back and play it on hard mode where you lose units like that, I can see the value there. But man, like it's just brutal to play through that. I'm not going to pick up Halo and play on legendary the first time through, but after I've, played the levels, I know where the weapons are. I know where the enemies are going to come from. Yeah, I'll play back through on hard or legendary. I'll experience that difficulty level. Uh, but I don't want to do that off the bat. I, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Maybe I'm just a baby, little baby gamer. But that's how I feel. That's how I've always felt. It's why I haven't got into those games for the most part. It just isn't very fun for me to get beaten down over and over. Uh, yeah, that's about what I gotta say. So, I guess if you have feelings on these games, I mean, if you echo my feelings on it, if you have advice on how to come at them at a in a better way, so that I can enjoy them a little more, I would like to. It's not saying that I've sworn them off and don't ever want to touch them again. Like, if there is a really significantly good way for me to experience like the first 7 Fire Emblem games in a way that doesn't suck and makes me have to reset hundreds of times. Um, I mean, I would love to because those stories and those characters are really good, and I love what they do in those games around the battles, and a lot of the battle mechanics even I really like, but I hate losing a unit, and I'm like, well, that was my level 20 axe wielder, and he's gone now, so I have to reset, otherwise I will never make it through another fight, even if I make it through this one. So yeah, drop your advice in my Discord, in the comments, I guess. I have this on a video, so I'm going to upload that to YouTube this week. Check that out if you're not watching it right now, which pointing at you right now. Uh, but yeah, drop into my Discord. I've got that link. I've got links to my my other podcast, Alter Narratives. and a few other things, so check all that out in the description and the show notes. Until next time, I am Clen. I will probably not be caught playing Fire Emblem. Maybe I'll check out that Warriors game, though. Sounds fun. But until next time.